Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. I'm Scott McMartin with Celero Optima, a proud PlanetTogether sales and implementation partner. Over the next 45 minutes, I will point out how the partnership between PlanetTogether and Celero Optima will help you to achieve even greater value from the industry-leading PlanetTogether APS software in which you have already invested. The proven ideas and approaches we advocate, our thoughtware, if you will, is the high-octane fuel this supercharged scheduling engine needs to help you run your company's production planning and schedule execution at its optimum. I want to thank Ryan and PlanetTogether for facilitating today's presentation, which is being recorded for later viewing or download. As you think of questions during the presentation, type them into the Q&A box. If we can answer the questions when they are posted, we will, but to ensure we stay on schedule, we have reserved time at the end to address any open questions. Ryan, do you have anything else to add?
I'm good. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, let's get started. Today's agenda includes a short Celero Optima overview introduction, after which we will focus on how to overcome the two primary causes of challenge delivery and profit performance. That is process variability and cost accounting. To ensure you get a high return on your time investment, I will close with a few suggestions that will enable you to take what you will learn in the next hour and put it into action, possibly as early as this afternoon. Many of us at Celero Optima have been focused on leveraging APS technology for better scheduling since the mid-90s, when it was referred to as fast MRP. Over the past 23 years, my colleagues and I have developed a wealth of knowledge about how to generate real and significant operating results in a wide range of manufacturing environments. The last 13 years, we have been doing this as Celero Optima, and for the last 2, as a PlanetTogether partner. Over the years, early adopter companies like General Motors, Pratt Whitney, Medtronic, and Ashley Furniture, as well as many lesser-known upstarts, have obtained results like these. To start off with, the thing that most people are interested in is on-time delivery, and today, world-class is at least 98% or better. So there's not a lot of margin for error here. But if you, over the years, as we've been implementing the philosophies that we advocate, this range of impact is really what has been typical. Even today, we run into companies that are suffering from poor delivery performance in the range of 50%, 50% to 90%. So even today, with the tools that are available, a lot of companies still struggle with this. The other key impacts are 60% less order cycle time, less inventory and operating expense, better asset utilization, and more financial throughput. So if you look at the way these things kind of stack up, if you want to retain and grow your customers, you got to be reliable. If you want to attract new customers, you got to be responsive. If you want to be really profitable, you have to really do the job of fulfilling the needs of your customers at a very low cost. And if you're going to create value, you've got to get you got to get the return on the invested capital. All of this leads to more throughput in terms of delivering more product to customers and better profitability. When you made your initial investment in the PlanetTogether APS software, these may have been some of the outcomes you had anticipated when you were at the realized stage of the continuous improvement curve pictured here. I bet most of you moved quickly along this performance curve to some degree, from realize to visualize, and on to optimize. Some of you may have even been able to capitalize on new market opportunity as a result of your improved delivery performance. It is not, if you did not achieve these outcomes to this extent, it is likely because you skipped a very important synchronize phase, which is the focus of the rest of the presentation and will give you the needed insights to lead your company to the next level of performance. So let's first talk about the fundamental root cause of poor delivery, variability. We all know that Murphy will strike, machines go down, people don't show up, material is late or defective, and the weather is bad. Oh yeah, and customers change their mind. We know these things happen every day, so why not accommodate this reality in our planning and scheduling model? When a manufacturer realizes they should invest in a scheduling solution, they typically are interested in improving their on-time delivery performance, often triggered by the loss of a valuable customer who simply got tired of putting up with chronic late delivery. The belief is that the key to better delivery is improved order visibility via a Gantt chart, the ability to instantly optimize new orders into the schedule across all resources, as well as perform quick what-if analysis to resolve the inevitable scheduling disruptions. Then quickly replan using the best alternative scenario. These capabilities are all available to you. Such a solution is always an improvement over the typical spreadsheet approach and is a way to rectify the shortcomings of the ERP investment, which also offered the hope of better planning and scheduling results. After all, these enterprise systems have capabilities like material requirements planning, rough cut capacity planning, and master production scheduling. This basic understanding of the capability of scheduling software, or tool as it is often called, almost always leads to a tactical implementation that I refer to as paving the cow path. To effectively address variability, it is essential that the constraint in the critical routing, what we call the drum, is protected or buffered with enough time to compensate for upstream process variability. In this example, the market demand is 60 units per period, but the work center number 6 in the routing has a planned capacity of just 50 units per period. So this system, governed by the slowest paced operation, which we'll call the drum, can only produce 50, correct? If for some reason the drum produces 45 in a given period, the 5 lost units are truly lost forever, because in the next period, the drum can only produce 50, not 55. For this reason, it is absolutely critical to protect the drum's capacity, which we do with a strategic time buffer, meaning we are planning for material to arrive at the drum early enough to absorb the most recently demonstrated process variability. Not only is the drum buffer critical to protecting the system's unit throughput, but as we will see, it is also critical to maximizing the system's financial throughput. In addition, we will protect our on-time delivery with buffers at the assembly point and in shipping. To complete the picture of this execution model you see here, I would like to draw your attention to the blue arrows, the rope, representing a connection of the market demand signal to the drum's capacity, which in turn is signaling the release of material into the production system in sync with the pace of the drum. One final note, if we are going to use buffers, we need to monitor them as a form of early warning system. This is drum buffer rope execution, the only effective way to schedule in complex, discrete, and process manufacturing environments. DBR scheduling, buffer management, and capable to promise are all supported in the PlanetTogether APS engine. Celero Optima can assist you to design your DBR model. Before we move on, here we see that the time buffer, the absorption mechanism essential to addressing variability, is comprised of 3 zones. They could be hours, they could be shifts, they could be days, whatever is appropriate for your environment. As material arrives in the buffer, we must pay particular attention to the cases where material is penetrating the buffer into the red zone, or we will be late to our customers. If material is arriving in the green zone more often than we expect, we should consider shrinking the buffer. If the opposite is true, more frequent penetrations into the red zone is occurring, we should think about increasing the buffer, at least temporarily, until we can address the causes of variability. So the time buffer allows us to be proactive in addressing potentially late orders, as well as focusing our continuous improvement efforts on the causes of variability in upstream processes. If you use buffer management in a disciplined manner, you should be able to consistently make the plan rather than having to replan. In case some of you have never seen it, here is a PlanetTogether screen depicting the use of a drum buffer. We are happy to discuss and demonstrate this functionality with you at your convenience. So we have learned how to make and keep our delivery commitments using DBR scheduling and buffer management. But how do we know what to produce? Now let's talk about the implications of cost accounting on our current decision-making process and ultimately our performance. In a few minutes, you will understand why we refer to cost accounting as public enemy number one. Here we have an example of two products for which we currently take orders that have different contributions to our firm's profitability. In most companies we encounter, because the current demand management process is dysfunctional, the plant is overbooked, resulting in a daily exercise in determining who gets the capacity. Traditionally, assuming the schedule is not driven by the customer who is screaming the loudest, most companies use gross profit as the driver of their business decisions, including schedule priority. In the traditional cost accounting environment, in which manufacturing overhead is allocated to products as the basis of cost, orders for product A, the most profitable in terms of gross margin, would always be given priority over orders for product B. On this point, I think we're in agreement. This is logical and straightforward. How else would one go about it? Although costing is in this manner is a common approach and labor efficiency is a key performance metric, I'm not sure how easy it is for most employees to know exactly how they truly impact the operational outcome. For example, what are the components of burden or overhead? How much of that can they influence? How much of it is arbitrary? Is it even legitimate for the product to be burdened with overhead costs? Before we can answer these good questions, let's acquire some new knowledge about a possible alternative of looking at the world. All right, if you'll indulge me, let's pause for a moment and define a few new terms that will become very important in our ability to challenge the conventional wisdom regarding profitability a little bit differently. In the prior slide, we evaluated the two orders on the basis of traditional profit and loss using gross margin. I would like to introduce three new metrics which will serve as the foundation of our decisions. In the first measure, throughput, or T, the money a system generates through sales, not production. Because T is generated as a result of sales transaction, it has a financial characteristic of profit or loss and is not necessarily considered a unit of production, as is usually the case. The financial value of T is derived by subtracting the value of true variable costs, primarily material at purchase price, from net sales. So the components of throughput are actual net sales dollars, meaning the net of things like rebates and the true variable costs associated with actual sale. Things like commission and freight. Given the nature of T, or throughput, we would naturally want to increase this measure at all times. What is really good about T is that it is theoretically unlimited. The second new measure is investment, or I, the money a system spends on items intended for sale or items intended for conversion into finished product or inventory. The term investment is sometimes used because it includes capital, which may also be sold. Given that capital is held for a longer term, it is typical that the focus is on inventory when referring to I. Generally, from an efficiency or productivity point of view, a system tries to minimize its capital investment in the course of conducting business. But if the theoretical minimum of zero investment were reached, the business would be non-existent from a practical standpoint. What is interesting to note is that there is a limit. The third new measure is operating expense, or OE, the money a system spends to convert I into T. OE includes all expenses incurred by an operation, including direct and indirect labor, budgeted overtime, as well as things like interest and lease payments and taxes. Again, in the case of I, OE, as in the case of I, OE is a metric companies strive to minimize and which has theoretical minimal value of zero. Essentially, the new measures of T, I, and OE can be used to classify all money spent or generated by an organization. In fact, you could take these building blocks, the throughput, the inventory, and the operating expense buckets, and you could use their ratios. For example, labor productivity or employee productivity could be expressed as T over OE. Capital productivity could be expressed as T over I. Net profit could be expressed as T minus OE. So these three building blocks have a tremendous amount of applicability in the environment that we're traditionally used to. Okay. Before we continue with our cost accounting discussion, I want to return to a previously identified wrinkle, the existence of a capacity constraint, or DRUM. In this case, a work center that has 1,000 hours per month of availability, possibly work center number 6 in our earlier example of the drum buffer rope execution model. Both product A and product B require time on the capacity constraint, but product B only requires 7/10 of an hour, whereas product A requires a full hour of processing time. Coincidentally, 2 of our best salespeople and notorious expediters each booked large separate year-end orders, one for 1,000 units of product A and one for 1,400 units of product B, respectively. Each of these orders, if shipped complete before the end of the month, will ensure the plant achieves its monthly revenue goal. It is currently projecting a $5 million shortfall, and put the associated sales rep over their year-to-date quota. Question is, how should we allocate capacity? Because of the difference in processing time on the constraint, we can actually run 428 more units of product B than product A in the month. But why would we even think of committing our limited capacity to product B? Even though we could generate more than 1.5 million in incremental revenue than we could by producing product A, by doing so, we would lose $300 per unit times 1,428 units, or $428,400 for an opportunity cost of over $600,000. Let's take a closer look. If we analyze decision with the objective of maximizing throughput rather than gross profit, we see that the overhead costs are still present, but we should not penalize the product for potentially poor capital investment decisions by senior management. What we must focus on is the capacity of the constrained resource and how much drum capacity is needed to produce the product. In this case, because product B can be processed by the work center in less time than product A, we have the opportunity to satisfy a demand of 428 more units of product B, enough to satisfy the full order, with an incremental true variable cost of $428,000 and an incremental revenue of $2,011,600, as well as an incremental profit contribution of almost $1.1 million. This is pretty significant. Look at the aggregated impact of just 18 minutes of bottleneck time per hour using throughput rather than gross profit as the key measure. Even advocates of lean accounting accept that overhead should not be allocated, but only throughput accounting understands and accommodates the existence and implication of a capacity constraint or a bottleneck, the drum. When thinking about capacity allocation from a throughput perspective, it is sales of product B that are the true engine of profit and value creation. In this example, the firm's assets should be utilized to fulfill the year-end order for product B. Current thinking would cause us to push in the other direction and possibly build product A at the expense of the opportunity represented by product B. Let's take this a step further. As we just proved, it is capacity-constrained resource time that is critical, not total routing process time. The key measure to consider when loading the plant is throughput dollars per constraint time unit, or what we call throughput velocity. Notice that product A actually has more throughput than product B at a product level, but not as much throughput per constraint time unit. Embracing this margin concept will have significant impact on the future market, pricing, and production scheduling initiatives for your firm. After testing your firm's top 10 products with regard to their throughput contribution, take a look at the bottom 10. You will likely find a few surprises. You may find you are discounting products for which you have no capacity, or that you are trying to exact premiums for products that run on currently idle resources. Regarding unconstrained resources, it would actually make sense to take any order that covers the true variable cost, even if it's only by $1. Okay, now I'd like to go back to the continuous improvement curve from an implementation point of view. This progression of the optimum path to attaining and sustaining market leader delivery and profit performance. So as we talked about earlier, you ended up making the investment in the APS software that you're using, the PlanetTogether APS, when you realized there had to be a better way and you could not sustain the ability to manage the business with inadequate tools. The first thing you were really looking for was greater visibility. That's what everybody wants. I want greater visibility into the forecast, into the production plan, and that'll help me to make better decisions. We've talked about moving to the synchronize phase before going to the optimize phase. And then finally on to the capitalize phase, which is where you're able to now take advantage of new market opportunity because you can execute better than your competition. But what I fear most of you have done is you've jumped over the synchronize stage, going from visualize right to optimize. The reason most people do this is because of cost accounting, I would guess, which incents us to try to optimize all of our resources. This is why many of you still struggle to achieve your initial on-time and lead time improvement objectives. You missed the part about how to stabilize and maximize the fulfillment system through the synchronous concepts we just talked about. What we would assist you with is the implementation of the synchronized stage of perfecting your scheduling process. So I told you I would give you some guidance on possible actions you could take that will immediately impact your business. The first step in determining the appropriate scheduling strategy is to clearly define a defendable company value proposition that is effectively communicated to the target market. So a lot of times we ask companies, what are they good at? Why do you win business against your toughest competitors? And every one of them will say, well, we've got a good price, we provide great service, and we've got really innovative products. The fact of the matter is that all the really good companies know exactly what their value proposition is. It's one of those three things. It's rarely all of those three things. And then the other question is, like Walmart, if you're the price leader, their slogan is Walmart, lowest prices every day. I mean, it's pretty clear. Their messaging is very much tied to their value proposition of lowest price products. So the other question you have to ask yourself is, and that you may want to have want to discuss with your colleagues is, how do we back it up? We have all these cute phrases a lot of times, but can you really back it up? Does the target market customer or prospect who would be looking at your marketing, does it resonate with them? And can you back up? What does good service mean? If you can't talk about 98% on-time delivery, you're kind of undermining your service, your claim that you're the service leader. Okay. Next, and this is always a really interesting one for me, take a look at how well your current customers line up with your value proposition. To do this, create a bar chart separating your customer base into deciles by whatever unit of value you prefer, each bar representing 10% of your customers. Some kind of profit driver is usually best. If you are like most companies, especially ones with a high mix, low volume production dynamic, you will find that a very small percentage of your customers contribute most of the value or profit. Usually it is in the range of 20% driving 80%. In one company I work for, it was actually 10% driving 90%. This begs the question, why are these angel customers willing to pay us enough of a premium for us to do business with the other 80%? 80% of the customers that we do business with don't pay us a premium or don't pay us for the value that we're bringing to them. If you are not sure about your value proposition, these folks know what it is. Just ask them. But before you go firing any of the so-called demon clients, these guys down here on the right, call us so we can help you do the analysis. Once you've dealt with the marketing stuff, that is, you are clear on the company's value proposition and you are clear on your company's target market customer, the next thing you will want to do is have a discussion with your sales, customer service, and operations folks to see if everyone is on the same page regarding delivery performance. Facilitating the answer to these questions would be a great start. Without fail, and I can't tell you how many times this happens, even though people are looking to improve their delivery performance, when this discussion starts with someone asking the first obvious question, what is our on-time delivery performance? Everyone sitting around the table will have a different answer. Or they might look at each other like, we don't really know. By the time you get to the last question, this meeting will have lasted a couple of hours, possibly the whole day. It's fun, especially if you like to poke the bear. Try it. So what's the delivery performance? But key is, how is it measured? Is it measured to the customer's requested delivery date or your committed and negotiated ship date? How are the dates determined in the first place? Standard lead times, or are you really testing your capacity and material availability? Does early count as on time? And the other thing you might want to find out is, what is best in class for your industry peers? This is a great discussion, and it's one that will really be engaging, and I think you'll enjoy it, and the outcomes will be very interesting. The last action item is one that may be a real eye-opener, especially if your sales force is complaining their prices are not competitive. Here is a suggestion you can explore, maybe even this afternoon, as a way to move the dial. Start by ranking your top gross margin products. Maybe just start with your top 10. Next, possibly with the help of your controller to break out true variable cost, take a look at their respective throughput contributions. Then, try to determine the throughput velocity of your top products. You could even apply this to your customers or even markets. In many cases, there is an inverse ranking of these products between gross margin and throughput, which really is interesting, because if you're currently making decisions to maximize gross margin and you should be maximizing throughput, you may be missing tremendous opportunity. I think the example I showed earlier shows you how dramatic that can be. This information will be very useful, as we have seen, in making the capacity allocation call when capacity gets tight. I will be interested to hear what you find in your initial exploratory effort. If you would like help with clarification or interpretation, please just give us a call. Once you have this data, if you would like us to work with you to develop throughput-based pricing and operation strategies, or help you build a business case to do that, just let us know. With just this new understanding and perspective, I am confident you will now that you are now properly armed to make a noticeable and significant impact on your business in as little as a single quarter. But you must take action. You will quickly find that you are more competitive than you thought, and that you can leverage this new insight to your distinct advantage, while your competitors are struggling using cost allocations and labor efficiencies to drive schedules that are DOA and undermining their own profitability and their customers' satisfaction. When their customers come to you for a quote, be ready. So, do me a favor. Let's don't pave the cow path. With these insights and the most robust scheduling engine on the market to support their implementation, you could put your company on the superhighway to creating and sustaining a market-leading position. As I said earlier, today is the 14th of September. Based on my own experience, I know you can make a measurable difference in your company's profit and delivery performance before the end of this year, and I will help you to get started. Give me a call. If anyone who is on this call wants my help to at least do an initial assessment of the opportunity the ideas presented today represent for your company, let me know. I will be happy to support your interest in exploring the potential at no charge. If we connect before the end of the month, I know you can deliver a bottom line impact before the end of the year. Again, I want to thank PlanetTogether for creating such an awesome product, and Ryan for facilitating today's presentation. I also want to thank you for your attendance and for caring enough about your own company to seek out ways to make it more competitive. Let's go change the game by creating an unfair competitive advantage with PlanetTogether APS software and Celero Optima thoughtware. With that, I'd like to see if we have any questions that were posed during the course of the presentation and try to answer them to the best of our ability. Ryan, are there any questions that were posed at this point?
No, I think we're good. I wanted to just say that thank you for the great presentation, a lot of insight there. Anyone on the call, we did live stream this to YouTube, so if you go to PlanetTogether's YouTube channel, you can get the video right away if you want to look through some of the slides. Otherwise, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with a link to download the video. And
let me just close one last comment. This stuff works, everybody. And, I was actually probably involved in the sales effort that resulted in you buying the PlanetTogether software in the first place. And I think most of you are very happy with the product and its capabilities. But until you really understand that there's another level of opportunity that you can leverage that software for, you're missing a big opportunity to really help your company become more competitive. I've done this myself in 2 companies where I was the one leading this initiative. It was a little scary, I guess, even for me, but I believed in it. And when we implemented it, it actually resulted in the best profitability we'd ever had in 50 years, the best customer satisfaction we'd ever had. And we were actually paying bonuses to the troops for 8 consecutive quarters in companies where we had really committed ourselves to this. So it works. And if you need a little bit of help kind of beating this drum at your company or doing the initial research, just let us know and we're happy to help you. Thanks again for your time, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone.